What would happen if your bank account could actually, talk back to you?
Right. Or even worse, what if it knew exactly why you bought those shoes at like 11 p.m. last night?
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. Today is Sunday, May 17th, 2026, and the way we interact with our money just permanently changed.
It really, really did. I
Yeah.
mean, just 2 days ago, on Friday, May 15th, OpenAI dropped this major tech release that completely alters the landscape of personal finance.
Yeah, they basically launched a real-time, highly contextual personal finance experience that functions entirely within ChatGPT.
Which is wild to think about.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to figure out exactly how this new AI financial tool works under the hood.
Right, because we need to look at the verifiable data on how AI actually alters human behavior.
Exactly. And ultimately, we need to figure out if this is a true financial revolution or just a massive calculated risk for your wallet.
We actually have a really deep stack of source material for this today.
Oh, yeah, we do.
We've got the technical rollout documentation from OpenAI, some recent behavioral economic studies, and a massive new report from Experian detailing consumer adoption rates.
And we are doing this without the boring Wall Street jargon, promise. Because to understand if this is actually a revolution, we have to look at the nuts and bolts of what was actually released.
Yeah, because on the surface, integrating a large language model into your checking account sounds straight up like science fiction.
Totally. So let's break down the actual deployment. What are we looking at right now?
Well, right now, this is a preview release, and it is strictly for pro users in the United States.
Just pro users in the US. Got it.
Yeah, and it's available on both the web interface and iOS. But the really big deal here is the foundational architecture. It relies on a secure integration with Plaid.
Okay, so Plaid. Plaid is essentially the connective API tissue of the modern financial internet, right?
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Like they act as the middleman between your financial apps and your actual bank.
Correct. So by utilizing Plaid, ChatGPT can now securely bridge to over 12,000 different financial institutions.
Wow. 12,000.
Yeah, it's massive. That covers your checking, your savings, your investment portfolios, and, your credit cards.
Everything.
Literally everything. And when you authorize that connection, ChatGPT generates this highly dynamic, real-time dashboard of your entire financial life.
But I mean, dashboards aren't really new. Like every major bank app has a dashboard,
Sure.
So the differentiator here has to be the engine parsing the data, which the release notes specify is the new GPT 5.5 thinking model.
Yes. And this is exactly where we transition from basic software to genuine artificial intelligence.
Also.
Well, traditional budgeting apps use rigid rules-based logic.
Right.
They see a transaction labeled Starbucks, they reference a static database, and they just tag it as food and dining.
Right. Very basic categorization.
Super basic. But the GPT 5.5 thinking model specializes in complex financial reasoning through semantic understanding.
Meaning it actually understands the context of the purchase, not just the text on the receipt.
Precisely. It doesn't just see a $40 charge at a grocery store. It cross-references that charge with your historical spending cadence, your stated financial goals, your current cash flow, and even the time of day.
Wait, the time of day.
Yeah. Like it might look at a Starbucks charge at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, correlate that with your typical morning commute, and understand it as a recurring workday expense rather than, say, a weekend luxury.
Oh, wow. That is a completely different level of reasoning.
It really is.
It's like having a 247 financial coach who never gets tired. And honestly, a coach who doesn't judge your impulse coffee purchases at 3 in the afternoon.
And, that lack of judgment is actually a critical psychological feature. It's not just a byproduct of it being a machine.
Really? How important is that?
Huge. Human beings carry immense, paralyzing shame around financial mistakes. People routinely lie to human financial advisors because they are just embarrassed by their spending habits.
That makes total sense. I've definitely felt that.
Right. But an AI doesn't sigh, it doesn't roll its eyes, and it doesn't judge you when you blow your budget on takeout. It simply recalibrates the mathematical trajectory of your goals.
Wow. That lack of friction totally changes how you query the system. I mean, the source material highlights some real-world prompts people are using.
Yeah, they're fascinating.
You aren't just asking it to export a CSV file. You are giving it highly subjective commands like, how do I save an extra $500 a month without suffering?
And that word right there, suffering, is where the semantic engine just shines.
Because it knows what that means for you?
Exactly. Because it has your real-time behavioral data, it actually calculates what suffering means for you personally.
That's wild. Give me an example.
So it sees that you go to the gym 4 days a week, It knows cutting that membership will be painful, but it also sees that you have like 3 distinct streaming services you haven't logged into in 60 days.
Oh, I feel attacked right now.
We all do. And it notices your dining out expenses spiked over the last 3 weekends. So it targets those frictionless cuts first.
You can even scale it up to massive life questions too, right? Like you can ask, what happens if I want to buy a house in 5 years, given my current situation?
Yep. And it maps out the entire trajectory based on your live cash flow, debts, and assets.
That's incredible.
And OpenAI is already building out the broader ecosystem to support that. The release outlines planned future integrations with partners like Intuit.
Intuit, wow, okay.
Yeah, which signals a near future where the AI isn't just looking at your daily budget, but actually offering highly specific tax optimizations and credit card reward recommendations tailored to your exact spending profile.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because people are using these exact tools right now to connect their mundane daily salary to massive emotionally resonant life goals.
Absolutely.
Like they are connecting the decision to not buy a new jacket today directly to the goal of taking a dream trip to Machu Picchu next year. But I have to ask, a shiny new dashboard is just a tool. Does AI actually change human behavior when it comes to money?
Well, the academic data suggests it absolutely does. We have a recent study analyzing 2,170 Korean adults, and the adoption metrics are honestly staggering.
What did they find?
Of those surveyed, 67.8% are already using large language models for financial tasks.
Wait, really? Roughly 2/3 of that population sample are actively integrating AI into their money management.
Yes.
How are they even utilizing it?
The breakdown is super interesting. It shows 50% are using it for investing decisions, 48% for saving strategies, and 47% for day-to-day budgeting.
So they are basically treating the AI as an on-demand, highly personalized tutor.
Exactly. And the Experian report from our sources mirrors that on a broader scale. It
Yeah.
found that 47% of consumers have considered or actively used generative AI for their personal finances.
But here's the metric I really want to analyze. 96% of those users reported having positive experiences, particularly in budgeting and saving.
Yeah, that number is crazy.
Right. 96% satisfaction in a personal finance app is a statistical anomaly. Like, people usually hate budgeting apps because they just remind you that you're failing.
Exactly.
What exactly is the UI or behavioral trigger causing that kind of unprecedented user joy?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the high satisfaction comes from the AI's ability to actively neutralize cognitive bias.
Okay, cognitive bias,
Specifically, what behavioral economists call present bias.
which is our evolutionary tendency to overvalue immediate rewards, like, buying a gadget right now,
Yeah.
and completely undervalue long-term consequences, like retiring comfortably.
You nailed it. The human brain really struggles to visualize the future self. The future self just feels like a stranger to it.
Right, so the dopamine hit of buying the gadget easily overpowers the abstract concept of a depleted savings account.
Exactly. But what real-time AI does is make that abstract concept incredibly concrete.
How so?
When it instantly simulates scenarios and sends you personalized, non-judgmental projections, it basically forces your brain to confront the long-term reality of a short-term decision right in the moment of purchase.
Oh, I see. It bridges the gap. It introduces this micropause where you actually see the ripple effect of your spending.
Exactly. Furthermore, the studies highlight a massive leap in operational efficiency. Users are cutting the time spent on basic financial tasks by up to 70%.
70%.
Yeah, they aren't spending Sunday afternoons manually categorizing spreadsheet cells anymore.
Which naturally leads to a huge reduction in financial stress. I mean, studies continually show that chronic financial stress impacts mental health just as severely as major workplace toxicity or relationship issues.
It's a huge burden.
So by acting as a patient, on-demand tutor, the AI is alleviating a massive psychological weight.
And it democratizes access to financial clarity. Millions of people could never afford a fiduciary financial planner, either due to exorbitant minimum asset requirements or just the sheer intimidating complexity of the industry. This tool steps directly into that gap.
Okay, but saving time and reducing stress sounds fantastic until we address the obvious catch.
Right, there's always a catch.
Handing over the absolute most sensitive data of your life to a massive tech company naturally sets off some major alarm bells. I have to push back here. Isn't connecting my bank account to ChatGPT basically inviting a stranger to just look through my wallet?
Yeah, it's a valid concern.
And what about the models? OpenAI says they wipe your data if you disconnect, but if I don't dig through the settings to opt out, isn't my spending habit becoming part of GPT-6's permanent training weight?
That is the exact right question to ask. Financial data requires extreme scrutiny. So let's address the Plaid integration first.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because of how Plaid functions, OpenAI never actually sees your real bank account or routing numbers. The data is tokenized.
For anyone unfamiliar, tokenization essentially means Plaid takes your real account number, locks it in a digital vault, and hands OpenAI a temporary scrambled barcode.
Okay.
The AI can read the barcode to see the balance in the transactions, but if a hacker steals that barcode, it is completely useless for actually moving money.
Exactly. The AI is strictly read-only. It absolutely cannot authorize a transaction, pay a bill, or wire funds.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit better. But what about the training weights?
As for the data retention and training weights, you hit on a really crucial nuance. If you actively disconnect your accounts, OpenAI is contractually committed to wiping your financial data from their active systems within 30 days.
But the training data is the real currency for AI companies. We know that.
It is. And by default, standard ChatGPT interactions can be used to train future models. However, OpenAI has built in explicit opt-out controls for this financial integration.
So you have to do it manually.
Yes, you must proactively select the privacy controls to ensure your specific financial data isn't absorbed into the training weights of future iterations. If you don't opt out, your anonymized patterns do contribute to the model's broader understanding of consumer behavior. But this raises an important question. Even if the data is entirely secure from external hackers, is it secure from our own behavioral flaws?
What do you mean?
Well, there's a major psychological danger here known as automation bias.
Automation bias. How does that manifest in personal finance?
It is the human tendency to over-rely on automated systems. The brain is an energy-saving organ. Once it finds a tool that is highly reliable, say an AI that categorizes your budget correctly 99% of the time, the brain just stops critically analyzing the output to save calories.
You just offload the cognitive work entirely.
Exactly.
It's like relying on GPS for so long that you lose your internal compass. The day the GPS glitches and tell you to drive your car into a lake, you do it because your brain completely offloaded the job of navigation and stopped looking at the actual road.
That is the perfect analogy. And in finance, driving into a lake can mean thousands of dollars in tax liabilities.
Ouch. Yeah.
The source material explicitly warns that the AI can still hallucinate in complex scenarios. It might misinterpret a massive one-time medical bill as a permanent lifestyle creep and drastically alter your savings recommendations.
Or it might fail to understand the highly specific local tax implications of a niche investment vehicle you hold.
Exactly.
Which means it is a co-pilot, not a substitute for a certified human CPA.
Precisely. If you are dealing with complex corporate taxes, nuanced retirement drawdowns, or unique edge case financial situations, you still absolutely require a human expert.
So we have this incredible tool that cures automation bias, acts as a personalized coach, and drastically reduces financial stress. There is a brutal irony here.
Oh, definitely.
The exact people suffering the most from financial stress, the ones who desperately need a free 24/7 tutor, are the ones currently locked out of using it.
You are talking about the digital divide.
Yes. The rollout is limited to pro users in the United States. You have to be able to afford a monthly premium subscription just to access the tool designed to help you save money. It basically creates a walled garden around financial literacy.
It is a significant barrier to entry, no doubt. While the stated long-term vision of these tech companies is total democratization, the short-term reality of deployment is that advanced AI is a premium, gated feature.
That's frustrating.
It is. Cost, digital literacy, and simple geographical location are acting as gatekeepers to this technology right now.
So what does this all mean? We know the tech is incredibly powerful, utilizing semantic reasoning to bridge the gap between our present desires and our future goals.
Right.
We know it has measurable positive impacts on mental health, but we also know there are distinct privacy hurdles, the very real danger of automation bias, and stark issues with accessibility.
Yeah, it's a lot to weigh.
Knowing all of that, how should you, the listener, actually engage with this technology right now? We need some practical homework.
The source actually outlines several highly actionable best practices. If you were going to explore this, the first piece of advice is just to start small. Start with completely unconnected data.
Meaning, do not authorize the Plaid connection right out of the gate.
Right. Use the standard text-based version of ChatGPT for generic financial education first. Ask it to explain compound interest mechanics, or have it build you a generic framework for a 50-30-20 budget.
And a 50-30-20 budget, just to clarify for everyone, is the classic framework where 50% of your income goes to absolute needs like rent and groceries,
Right.
30% goes to wants like dining out, and 20% is strictly allocated to savings or debt payoff.
Exactly. Have the AI build that out for a hypothetical salary. See how you interact with the interface and the advice before handing over the keys to your live data.
And if you do decide to take the plunge and connect your actual bank accounts,
Digital hygiene must be your top priority. You must turn on multi-factor authentication MFA for your OpenAI account immediately.
oh, absolutely.
Treat your ChatGPT login with the exact same security rigor you would apply to your actual bank app.
Because even if a hacker can't move your money, the data inside that chat log is essentially a map of your entire life.
It is deeply revealing. The next step is to regularly audit the AI's financial memories.
Memories.
Yeah, the system retains your stated goals and past inputs to provide better ongoing context. Periodically review what the system knows about you to ensure it isn't basing its financial projections on outdated information or, past hallucinations.
Good tip.
And finally, if you aren't actively using the real-time integration, just proactively disconnect the accounts.
What about the GPS problem? How do we combat automation bias and ensure our financial muscles don't just completely atrophy?
By tracking manually first. Before you let the AI build your entire financial architecture, spend 30 days tracking your expenses yourself.
Do it the hard way.
Yeah, build the neurological muscle of financial awareness. Then, when the AI gives you a summary or a piece of advice later, you have a solid baseline of reality to compare it against.
Yeah,
You aren't just blindly following the machine. You are verifying its output.
that's smart. But what if you are listening to this outside of the US? Or what if you just cannot justify the cost of the pro tier right now? What are the viable alternatives?
Well, the underlying goal here is financial literacy, not just driving adoption for a specific OpenAI product.
Right.
For those waiting for the broader rollout, the advice is to combine the free AI tools you do have access to with foundational financial education. The source explicitly recommends grounding yourself in classics like Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Because understanding the fundamental difference between an asset and a liability never goes out of style, no matter what algorithm is currently running.
Exactly. And you can also utilize alternative AI-assisted apps that are already established on the market.
Like what?
Tools like Mint or Expense. They utilize varying levels of machine learning to help categorize and optimize your spending. They might not have the deep semantic reasoning of GPT 5.5, but they are effective starting points.
It's all about just starting.
The key is taking active control with whatever tools are currently available to you.
Which brings us to the challenge. We aren't just going to analyze this today. We want you to actively test it.
Yes.
Whether you have access to the new real-time integration or you are simply using the free unconnected model, we have a direct challenge for you to try today.
Go to ChatGPT and type in this exact prompt. Analyze my expenses from the last 3 months and suggest 3 realistic improvements.
Simple as that.
And if you aren't connected via Plaid, you will just need to manually type in a rough estimated breakdown of your major expense categories over the last 90 days.
The goal of this exercise is really to see exactly how the model processes the subjective context of your specific situation.
It's about breaking the ice. It's about feeling what it is like to have an objective, highly capable, completely non-judgmental entity look at your cash flow and just offer perspective.
Because ultimately, AI is not going to make you a millionaire overnight. It is not a magic wand that bypasses the math of saving.
Definitely not.
No, but it is an incredibly powerful tool to stop money from controlling your life. It is a tool designed to reduce friction, to bridge the gap between your present desires and your future reality, and to give you back the cognitive bandwidth you have been wasting on financial stress.
But as we rapidly integrate these hyper-efficient tools into the central nervous system of our lives, it does leave us with a broader, almost philosophical question to consider.
Ooh, let's hear it.
If we eventually allow artificial intelligence to perfectly optimize our spending, if it gets so semantically advanced that it can accurately predict and stop our bad financial habits before they even happen, do we risk losing something essential to the human experience? Do we risk losing the serendipity and sometimes the necessary painful, hard lessons of making our own financial mistakes?
That's a profound thought. If the AI removes all the friction and pain of managing money, does it also inherently remove our emotional connection to the actual value of a dollar?
Think about the medical metaphor of an X-ray versus a cast. We all want the clean X-ray. We want the perfectly straight, unblemished bone of a flawless financial record.
Yeah.
But a life well lived usually comes with a few bumps, a few healed fractures from taking risks or making bad bets. Experiencing that pain is precisely how we learn to walk more carefully the next time.
Right.
If the AI acts as a permanent, rigid cast, never letting us fall, never letting us feel the consequences of a bad purchase, do our own internal financial muscles just atrophy from lack of use?
That is a phenomenal question to leave you with today. Are we building a navigational tool or are we building a permanent crutch?
Something to really chew on.
Absolutely. Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thank you for joining us as we explored the very bleeding edge of personal finance. Until next time, maintain a healthy skepticism, keep questioning the underlying mechanics of the tools you use, and above all else, keep that cash flow positive.